Well, hello again, everyone. And I'm going to be carrying on today trying to sort out this flipping e-bike, which is proving a bit of a nightmare. And of course, many thanks to everyone who has commented on the previous videos. And yeah, I do tend to agree with the folk who say it may be time to call it a day and just get a new bike. But that's not really an option, and it's not really in the spirit of the e-bike either. I mean, it's supposed to be an environmentally friendly thing, and if you have to throw them away every sort of 6 or 7 years, then that kind of takes away a great part of their value in that respect, I feel. That's pretty disappointing that the local dealers won't support these bikes anymore. Obviously wasn't expecting it to be covered by any sort of warranty at this stage, but it would have been nice if they would have offered to help and given some sort of advice and assistance rather than just saying it's an old model, we don't support them anymore. Just to recap what I've already said about these motors in a previous video, I am aware that there is a sort of known issue with these motors, and they do suffer from a problem that they call the Kalkhoff clack, where they fail by starting to make what is described as a clacking noise and then fail not long afterwards. Well, mine was not making that clacking noise. In fact, it wasn't really making any noise that you wouldn't expect, just a very gentle, faint electric motor noise. But I did get the idea that it had stopped giving quite so much assistance. It did seem to be losing a little bit of power. So at the end of the last video, I'd more or less come to the conclusion that I was going to have to take that motor off and strip it down just to see if I could see anything obvious. But I sort of thought to myself that that was perhaps unlikely if I took what the bike shop said at face value, because the motor wasn't making any unusual noises, especially not the noises that are known to be a problem. And the bike shop were pretty sure that this was an electronic fault. Now, I'm fairly comfortable with mechanical type things, but electronics is not my game. So I suspect if I took it apart, I'd just be looking at the electronics and not really knowing what I was looking at. So I hunted around to see if I could manage to source a replacement motor. I did find a couple of second-hand Impulse 2 motors, which I could have brought for £200 to £300. But again, a bit of an unknown quantity, and throwing that amount of money at something that's known to have that sort of inherent weakness didn't seem that sensible. They do an Impulse 2.3, which says it's a direct replacement. And I found a couple of places that listed that, but similar to the speed sensor, they both showed that the motor was out of stock. And that motor is between 600 and 800 pounds. And it did say on both websites they recommend it's fitted by a Kalkhoff dealer, and I suspect that's because the controller and such would need to be uploaded with updated software to run the motor. So if I bought it and tried to fit it myself, I suspect, I don't know for sure because I'm a bit sketchy on all this, that it wouldn't work without some sort of updated software. If you know differently, let me know, because that may be something we end up doing. I very much doubt it given the cost, but it may be. So then I did find a bike shop down Bristol way that said they repair and replace Impulse 2 motors. But their website is worded very much in terms of bringing the bike in. So I contacted them and said, look, could I just take the motor off and send you the motor? And they replied pretty instantly, very good service on that front, and said, that's not really our bag, we like to replace the whole motor in the bike. But if you talk to a company called Performance Line Bearings, then they do rebuild the Impulse 2 motors. And I had a look on their website, and yes indeed, they do offer a service for rebuilding the Impulse 2 motor, and it's quite a good website. It's quite detailed in terms of the things that they do, the service they offer, and you can send your motor in and either just opt to pay straight away for a full rebuild, which is shown at I think about £270 if I'm remembering correctly, or you can get them to look at it and diagnose the fault and then give you a quote for repair. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to opt for the complete rebuild because it is an old bike, and I'm slightly concerned if the bike shop does happen to be wrong, then I could stand up with a motor that's been rebuilt and a bike that doesn't work. So I'm going to opt for that sort of fault diagnosis on the motor side, because they might come back to me and say, well, there's nothing wrong with the motor. In which case I know that the bike shop was perhaps wrong in their diagnosis and we can start again. I don't think that'll be the case, because I have got a bit of faith in that bike shop. They did seem to know their stuff. So if they can strip the motor down at performance line bearings and identify something wrong and fix it, then that's all to the good. So today's job is to take the motor off, ready for posting to them. So the first thing I'm going to do is pop the bike upside down again, take the battery and those covers off like we did before, and then we'll see how we can remove the motor, because I've not done that before, so I have no idea. So there we go, I've exposed everything, and I've just popped the plastic cap off the end of the crank. It does say to remove the cranks and pedals and the chain ring and everything. If you can, it does say they'll remove it if you can't. But yeah, I wonder if I can get a socket in there, or whether I need a special thin walled socket. It does look like a bit of a tight fit. I'll go and see if I can fit one on there. Actually, look, a 14mm socket does go on nicely. Wonder how easy they'll be to undo. Let's give it a try. Right, well, they came off easy enough, but the crank itself, or the pedal crank bit, not the crank shaft, is pretty firmly on there. I think it's only on that sort of square drive off the motor. I wonder if I could just tap it off with a wooden mallet, or whether I'll need some sort of puller on there. Definitely plus gas. Everything needs plus gas, doesn't it? This might be the trick. Well, it's moving, I think. Or is it? My puller is a bit oversized for this job. I wonder if the ball joint separator would do the trick. Yep. This thing has been pretty knackered for some time. I have seen these for sale though. You can buy new ones of these, so might try that if we can get the motor fixed. I'm not going to spend money on decorative bits if we can't get the guts working. Well, next we'll undo these electrical connections. I've had at least one of them undone before. There is a third one, a red one down there, which I think we'll maybe be able to get to once the motor's loose. And this sort of battery connection remains fixed to the motor. So I'm going to undo these electrical couplings, and then we'll see if we can undo these mounting bolts for the motor. Right, actually they're pretty tight, and they're on a nylock nut on the back, or on the opposite side of the bike, which most of them are obscured by the front sprocket. And then you can see that's held on with a circlip. So let's get the circlip pliers and pop that off and see if we can get this front sprocket off. Oh. Maybe some gloves for this next bit. Get rid of the chain, we don't need the chain confusing us. This bike's covered nearly 6,000 miles, so I think it's had a good chance to get nicely seized on. Although this doesn't seem too bad, just a case of wiggling it off, hopefully. Lovely. Right, now let's see if we can get these mounting bolts undone. Gonna need an angled hexagon drive, I think. Sure what the purpose of this. Actually, I think this is the clip that holds the sort of guard for the chain. So I think that's probably got to come off. Maybe it hasn't got to come off, but it is coming off. Now, I should probably say, as we always say in most of our vehicle repair videos, I am not a trained e-bike mechanic, and I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. I'm only doing this because no one else is willing to do it for me, it seems. But I think now we should be able to lift this motor out. So let's see if we can do that carefully. There we go. So I think you can see now what my issue was with just replacing the hub motor, or the crank motor, with a hub motor. As soon as the crank motor is removed, you've really got nothing there, and that housing is very specific to this particular motor. You can't just bolt any motor in there, and there's nowhere to put an ordinary crank if you wanted a hub motor. So interestingly, I didn't actually have to disconnect this red thing from anything. It wasn't connected to anything. It just sort of stuck up into the seat post. So maybe that's for a function that this bike isn't fitted with. I know some of them have a back pedal braking function. So maybe that's the lead for that. Yeah, certainly only the two white connectors that are unplugged that sort of exist on the bike. There's nothing else because it would be nice just to find something that had just come unplugged, wouldn't it? But no, I don't think that is the case. Right, well, I reckon the next thing to do is to give it a good old clean up, because I don't really want to send a filthy motor through the post. Might clean some of the other components too while I'm at it. Well, I've got the motor cleaned up a bit. It's not perfect, but it's certainly good enough to send. But you can see a lot of the protective coating has come off this alloy, I guess it is, casing. You can see some corrosion starting underneath there as well. But yeah, nothing desperate. I mean, it's still plenty solid enough. I don't think anything's got in. So yeah, this is ready to be packaged up and sent off. I did notice when cleaning the chainring, the sprocket thing, that there's quite a lot of wear on that as well. So I think if we can get the motor fixed, we might see if we can get a new front sprocket as well. Right, now I'll fill their form in and then get this in the post to Performance Line bearings. Well, that's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends. Give the like button a press. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see some more.